Jake Martinez wiped the grease from his hands and looked around his small repair shop. The place was not much to look at. Old tools hung on dirty walls. Parts and pieces of broken machines covered every table. Oil stains marked the concrete floor. But Jake loved this place. It was his Kepler station buzzed with life outside his shop. Aliens from 100 different worlds walked through the halls. They came here to trade, to buy, to sell. Some looked like giant bugs. Others had too many arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. Jake had seen them all during his 10 years on the station. Most aliens thought humans were dumb. They said human tools were old and broken. They laughed at human ships and called them junk. Jake heard these words every day, but he did not care. His tools might be old, but they worked. His hands might be dirty, but they could fix anything. The door to his shop slid open with a loud screech. Jake looked up from the engine he was fixing. A tall figure walked in. She had blue skin that looked like metal. Her eyes were bright yellow and cold. Spikes grew from her shoulders and arms. This was a Draconian, one of the proud warrior race that ruled 3 star systems. "You are the human mechanic," she said. Her voice was deep and strong. "I am Commander Zara Veltar of the Draconian fleet." Jake stood up and nodded. "That's me. What can I do for you?" Zara looked around his shop. Her nose wrinkled like she smelled something bad. "This place is terrible. Your tools are ancient. How do you fix anything with such old junk?" "These old tools work just fine," Jake said. He kept his voice calm.
"What do you need fixed?"
"My war dragon is broken," Zara said. "It has been damaged in battle. The bioneural networks are destroyed. 3 other repair shops said they cannot fix it. They told me to come here as a last hope." Jake raised his eyebrows. War dragons were the most advanced ships in the galaxy. They were part machine and part living creature. The Draconians grew them in special labs. Each ship had a brain that could think and feel. Most mechanics were afraid to even touch them. "Where is your ship?" Jake asked. "Follow me," Zara said. They walked through the station to the main docking bay. Jake had never seen anything like what waited for him there. The war dragon was huge. It was as long as a city block and as tall as a building. Its skin was dark red and looked wet. Metal parts stuck out from its sides. Weapons hung from its belly like teeth, but something was wrong. The ship was making soft crying sounds. Its skin moved up and down like it was breathing hard. Lights under its skin flashed red with pain. "What happened to it?" Jake asked. "Enemy fire hit the main neural center," Zara said. "The ship cannot control its own body. It is in great pain. If we cannot fix it soon, it will die." Jake walked around the massive ship. He had never seen bioneural technology this advanced. The ship was like a giant living computer. Its brain was made of millions of tiny nerve cells. These cells talked to the ship's engines, weapons, and life support. When the neural center was damaged, the ship could not think or move. The other mechanics said it was hopeless. Zara continued. "They said human technology is too simple to understand our bioneural systems. But I have heard you can fix things others cannot." Jake touched the ship's skin. It felt warm and soft. The ship made a small sound like a hurt animal. Jake felt sorry for it. This was not just a machine. It was alive and in pain. "I might be able to help," Jake said. "But I will need to do things my way." Zara laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "Your way? You mean with your primitive human tools? This ship has technology your people do not even understand. Its neural networks are more complex than your entire civilization." "Maybe," Jake said. "But pain is pain, and broken is broken. I have fixed a lot of broken things." "This is not some cargo hauler or mining ship," Zara said. "This is a war dragon. It has bioneural circuits that took our best scientists 50 years to develop. Your people still use metal wires and simple computers." Jake looked at the ship again. Its breathing was getting weaker. The lights under its skin were dimming. Whatever he was going to do, he needed to do it fast. "I will need 3 days," Jake said. "And I will need you to stop telling me how stupid humans are." Zara's eyes grew wide. 3 days? The others said it would take weeks just to understand the neural patterns. "And you want me to be quiet about human weakness?" "That's right," Jake said. "Take it or leave it." Zara stared at him for a long time. Around them, other aliens had started to gather. Word was spreading that a human mechanic was going to try to fix a war dragon. Some were laughing. Others were shaking their heads. "Fine," Zara said at last. 3 days. "But when you fail, you will admit that human technology is inferior to ours. You will say it in front of everyone on this station." "And if I succeed?" Jake asked. Then I will pay you 3 times your normal fee, Zara said. But you will not succeed. This ship is beyond your primitive understanding. Jake nodded and walked back to his shop. He had work to do. Behind him, he could hear Zara talking to the other aliens. She was telling them about the foolish human who thought he could fix draconian technology with old tools and simple machines. Jake did not care what they said. He had made a promise to fix the war dragon. More importantly, he had made a promise to stop its pain. That was what mattered. The ship was alive and hurt, and Jake Martinez had never walked away from something that needed his help. As he gathered his tools, Jake could hear the war dragon's soft cries echoing through the docking bay. Soon he would find out if human stubbornness was stronger than alien pride. Jake spent the first day just looking at the war dragon. He walked around it many times. He touched different parts of its skin. He listened to the sounds it made. Zara followed him everywhere, making comments about everything he did. "You are wasting time," she said. "Real mechanics would have opened diagnostic panels by now. They would be running bioneural scans and checking quantum pathways." Jake ignored her. He was learning how the ship worked by watching and feeling. This was how he had always learned about machines. Books and computers could tell you facts, but your hands could tell you the truth. The war dragon was dying slowly. Its breathing was getting harder. The lights under its skin were getting dimmer. But Jake could see something the other mechanics had missed. The ship was not just broken. It was scared. "It knows it's hurt," Jake said to himself. "Of course it knows," Zara said. "War dragons are intelligent. They can think and feel just like any living creature. That is why your simple mechanical approach will never work." Jake knelt down and put his hand on the ship's skin, near what looked like its head. The ship made a soft sound and its skin grew a little warmer. It was responding to his touch. "Tell me about the bioneural networks," Jake said. Zara sighed like she was talking to a child. "Bioneural networks are living circuits. They grow like brain cells but work like computer wires. Each network can learn and adapt. When the ship needs to turn left, the networks make it happen. When it needs to fire weapons, the networks control the guns. When it needs to think about battle plans, the networks process information faster than any computer." "And when the networks are damaged?" Jake asked. "Then the ship cannot control its own body," Zara said. "It is like a person whose brain cannot talk to their arms and legs. The ship can think, but it cannot move. It can feel pain, but it cannot make the pain stop." Jake nodded. This made sense. The ship's brain was cut off from its body, but maybe there was another way to connect them. On the second day, Jake brought his tools to the docking bay. Other aliens had come to watch. They stood in groups, talking quietly and pointing at the human with his old toolbox. Jake opened a panel on the ship's side. Inside, he could see the damaged bioneural networks. They looked like tiny trees made of light. Many of the branches were black and broken. The networks that were still alive pulsed weakly like a dying heartbeat, you see, Zara said. Those networks took decades to grow. They cannot be replaced or repaired. They are too complex for your primitive understanding. Jake studied the networks for hours. Zara was right that they were complex. But Jake saw something else. The networks were trying to send signals to the ship's body. The signals were getting lost where the networks were broken. It was like a telephone line with cut wires. "What if I do not try to fix the networks?" Jake said. "What do you mean?" Zara asked. "What if I build a bridge around the broken parts?" Zara laughed. "A bridge? You mean some kind of mechanical connection? That is impossible. Bioneural networks use quantum signals and organic pathways. Your metal wires could never carry those signals." "Maybe not," Jake said, "but they could carry other signals." Jake went back to his shop and started building. He worked all night, making small devices from spare parts. He used old computer chips, copper wire, and basic sensors. Everything he built was simple and rough, but it was also strong and reliable. Zara watched him work. "What are those ugly things supposed to do?" "They are translators," Jake said. "The ship's brain speaks one language. Its body speaks another language. These devices will help them talk to each other." "Impossible," Zara said. "Bioneural signals are too complex. Your simple devices cannot understand them." "They do not need to understand," Jake said. "They just need to pass the message along." On the third day, Jake began installing his devices inside the war dragon. Each device was connected to healthy bioneural networks on one side and to the ship's mechanical systems on the other side. It was like building a bridge across a broken river. More aliens came to watch. The docking bay was getting crowded. Some were betting on whether Jake would succeed or fail. Most were betting he would fail. "Look at those crude connections," said a tall alien with 6 arms. "Human technology is so backward." "The poor ship will probably die from the shock," said another alien that looked like a walking tree. Zara stood with her arms crossed, watching Jake work. "You are going to kill my ship with your primitive devices," she said. "Maybe," Jake said. "But if I do nothing, your ship will die anyway." Jake's hands were steady as he made the final connections. Each device had to be placed exactly right. Too close to the damaged networks and they might interfere with healing. Too far away and the signals would be too weak. The war dragon seemed to sense what Jake was doing. Its breathing became more regular. The lights under its skin started pulsing in rhythm like it was getting ready for something. "This is crazy," Zara said. "You are connecting living neural networks to dead metal circuits. It will never work." "We will see," Jake said. As the sun set on the 3rd day, Jake finished his work. Dozens of his small devices were now connected throughout the war dragon's body. Wires ran from the ship's brain to its engines, from its thinking centers to its weapon systems, from its heart to its wings. The devices looked ugly compared to the elegant bio-neural networks. They were metal and plastic instead of living light. They had sharp edges instead of smooth curves. But they were strong and they were ready. Jake stood back and looked at his work. 3 days ago, the war dragon had been dying. Now it had a chance. His crude mechanical bridges might not be as beautiful as bio-neural networks, but they might keep the ship alive. "Are you ready?" Jake asked. Zara looked nervous for the first time since Jake had met her. Her ship, her pride and joy, was about to be tested by human technology she did not understand. "If this kills my dragon," she said, "I will make sure everyone in the galaxy knows that human mechanics are dangerous fools." "And if it works?" Jake asked. Zara was quiet for a moment. Around them, the crowd of aliens waited to see what would happen. The war dragon lay still, its skin barely glowing, its breath weak and slow. "If it works," Zara said finally, "then maybe humans are not as primitive as I thought." Jake walked to the main control panel he had built. It was covered with simple switches and basic displays. Nothing fancy, nothing elegant. Just tools that worked. He put his hand on the main power switch. The war dragon's life was in his hands now. 3 days of work came down to this moment. "Here we go," Jake said and flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. The war dragon lay still and quiet. The crowd of aliens held their breath. Jake stared at his control panel, watching the lights and meters. Then something changed. Deep inside the ship, Jake's devices began to glow. The bio-neural networks that were still alive started sending signals. The signals traveled through Jake's mechanical bridges to different parts of the ship's body. The war dragon's skin rippled like water. Its breathing became stronger. The lights under its skin began to pulse faster and brighter. Slowly, very slowly, the massive ship began to lift itself off the docking bay floor. "Impossible," whispered someone in the crowd. The ship rose a few feet into the air and hovered there. Its engines hummed with power. Its weapons moved slightly, testing their range. The ship's head turned left and right like it was looking around after a long sleep, but something was wrong. The ship was shaking. It moved up and down in jerky motions. "The lights under its skin flickered on and off, you see?" Zara said. "Your mechanical devices are fighting with the bio-neural networks. The ship cannot control itself properly." Jake watched his control panel. She was right. The bio-neural networks wanted to do things one way. His mechanical systems wanted to do things another way. They were not working together. "Give me a few minutes," Jake said. He began adjusting his devices. Each one had small dials and switches that could change how it worked. Jake had built these controls because he knew the first try might not be perfect. As he made adjustments, the war dragon's movements became smoother. The shaking stopped. The flickering lights became steady. The ship was learning to use both systems at the same time. "How is this possible?" asked the alien that looked like a tree. "Bio-neural networks and mechanical systems should not be able to work together." Jake smiled. This was something humans understood that other species did not. Humans had always been good at making different things work together. They combined old ideas with new ones. They used whatever tools they had to solve problems. "The networks handle the thinking," Jake explained. "My devices handle the doing. The brain decides to turn left. My devices make the engines turn the ship left. The brain decides to fire weapons. My devices tell the guns which target to hit. But that is so crude, said an alien with 4 eyes. Bio-neural networks are supposed to handle everything smoothly. Your way has extra steps. Extra steps mean backup plans, Jake said. If one system fails, the other can still work. Zara stared at her ship with amazement. The War Dragon was now flying in slow circles around the docking bay. Its movements were different than before. Less graceful maybe, but more solid and reliable. Test the weapons, Jake called up to the ship. The War Dragon's gun ports opened. Energy built up in its weapon systems. But instead of firing, the ship carefully aimed at empty space and fired a low-power blast that hurt nothing. The crowd gasped. The ship was not just moving. It was thinking and making careful decisions. Test the defense systems, Jake called. Armor plates slid into position along the ship's skin. Energy shields flickered to life around its most important parts. The ship was protecting itself. Now try combat maneuvers, Jake said. The War Dragon rose higher in the air. It spun left, then right. It dove down and pulled up at the last second. It moved like a dancer, but a dancer wearing heavy armor. Every movement was controlled and powerful. The aliens in the crowd began talking excitedly. Some were taking pictures. Others were making recordings. A few were already walking away, probably to call their own mechanics. Jake made one final adjustment to his control panel. The War Dragon settled gently onto the docking bay floor. Its engines powered down. Its weapons closed. But its skin continued to glow with health and strength. "How do you feel?" Jake called up to the ship. The War Dragon made a sound like a very large cat purring. It was a happy sound. The ship was no longer in pain. Zara walked up to Jake. Her face showed confusion and respect. "I do not understand how this works," she said. "It is simple," Jake said. "Your bio-neural networks are like the ship's soul. They make it alive and intelligent. My mechanical systems are like the ship's muscles. They give it strength and reliability. Together, they make the ship better than either system alone." "But our scientists always said bio-neural networks were perfect by themselves," Zara said. "Nothing is perfect," Jake said. "Everything can be improved. Your networks are amazing at thinking and adapting, but they are fragile. My mechanical systems are simple and rough, but they are strong and hard to break." An old alien with silver skin approached them. He wore the uniform of a station engineer. "Human," he said. "I have been fixing ships for 40 years. I have never seen anything like what you just did." More aliens came forward. They asked Jake questions about his devices. They wanted to know how he had learned to work with bio-neural networks. They asked if he could do similar work on their ships. Jake answered their questions as best he could. But he kept the technical details simple. He did not want other mechanics to copy his work exactly. He wanted them to understand the ideas behind it and then create their own solutions. The important thing, Jake told them, is not to be afraid of mixing different technologies. Just because something is old does not mean it is useless. Just because something is new does not mean it is perfect. A young alien that looked like a large bird raised her wing. "But humans are supposed to be a primitive species. How did you learn to work with our advanced technology?" Jake thought about this question. It was true that human technology was simpler than most alien technology. Human ships were slower. Human computers were less powerful. Human weapons were less advanced, but humans had something else. They had curiosity. They had stubbornness. They had the ability to keep trying when others gave up. Most importantly, they had the willingness to use whatever worked, even if it was not elegant or perfect. "Being primitive has advantages," Jake said. "We do not have rules about what is supposed to work and what is not supposed to work. We just try things and see what happens." "That sounds dangerous," said the 4-eyed alien. "Sometimes it is," Jake agreed. "But sometimes it leads to solutions that no one else would think of." Zara had been quiet during this conversation. Now she stepped forward. "I owe this human an apology," she said loudly. "I called his technology primitive. I said humans were inferior. I was wrong." The crowd grew quiet. Draconians were known for their pride. They rarely admitted mistakes, especially in front of other species. "This human," Zara continued, "has shown me that there are many ways to solve a problem. His way was different from our way, but it worked. My ship is not just repaired, it is improved." She turned to Jake. "You have earned my respect, but more than that, you have earned the respect of everyone here." Jake felt good about this praise, but he felt even better when he looked at the War Dragon. The ship was healthy and strong. Its pain was gone. It was alive and happy. That was what really mattered, not the praise or the money or the respect. What mattered was that he had helped a living creature that was hurt. As the crowd began to break up, Jake started packing his tools. Tomorrow there would be other ships to fix, other problems to solve. But tonight he could go home knowing he had done good work. The War Dragon watched him with intelligent eyes. As Jake walked away, the ship made soft, grateful sounds. It was saying thank you in the only way it could. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of knocking on his shop door. He had worked late into the night, putting his tools away and cleaning up after the War Dragon repair. His body was tired, but his mind was still excited about what had happened. When he opened the door, he found a line of aliens waiting outside. There were Draconians, Xanthari, mollusk people, and species he had never seen before. All of them had the same look in their eyes. They wanted Jake to work on their ships. "Please," said a blue-skinned Xanthari captain. "My ship has been making strange noises for months. 3 mechanics have looked at it. They all say nothing is wrong, but I know something is not right." Behind her, a Draconian officer stepped forward. "My War Dragon is healthy, but it is slow. I heard you made Commander Veltar's ship faster and stronger. Can you do the same for mine?" More voices joined in. Everyone wanted to talk at once. Jake held up his hands. "One at a time," he said. "I will try to help everyone, but I can only work on one ship at a time." As the day went on, Jake examined ship after ship. Each one had different problems. Some had mechanical issues that regular mechanics could fix, but others had more complex problems that needed Jake's special approach. The Xanthari captain's ship was making noise because its bio-neural networks were arguing with its computer systems. The networks wanted to fly smoothly. The computers wanted to fly efficiently. Jake built devices that let both systems work together without fighting. A cargo hauler had engines that kept overheating. The ship's cooling systems were designed by one species, but the engines were made by another species. The two systems did not work well together. Jake created mechanical bridges that helped them communicate better. Word spread quickly through Kepler Station. The human mechanic who had fixed the impossible War Dragon was now improving all kinds of ships. Aliens who had never spoken to humans before came to his shop with their problems. But the most interesting visitor came on the 3rd day. Commander Zara Veltar returned with her War Dragon, but she was not alone. She brought 5 other Draconian officers with her. "Jake Martinez," she said formally, "I want you to meet my squadron commanders. They have come to see what you did to my ship." The other Draconians looked nervous. They had heard stories about the human who mixed primitive technology with advanced bio-neural networks. Some thought it was impossible. Others thought it was dangerous. "Show them," Zara said to Jake. Jake walked over to the War Dragon. The ship recognized him and made happy sounds. Its skin glowed brighter when he touched it. "Your ship is feeling good," Jake said to Zara. "Better than good," she replied. "Yesterday we ran combat exercises with 2 other squadrons. My ship performed better than any other War Dragon in the fleet. It was faster, stronger, and more reliable." One of the other commanders, a large Draconian with golden spikes, stepped forward. "That is impossible. All War Dragons are built the same way. They should perform equally." "Not anymore," Zara said. She turned to her ship. "Dragon, show them your new capabilities." The War Dragon rose into the air. It moved through a series of combat maneuvers that made the other commanders gasp. The ship spun and dived and climbed with perfect control. Its weapons tracked multiple targets at the same time. Its shields adjusted automatically to incoming threats. But what impressed the commanders most was how quiet the ship was. Most War Dragons made roaring sounds when they flew hard. Zara's ship moved almost silently. "How is this possible?" asked a female commander with silver skin. Jake pointed to his mechanical additions. "The bio-neural networks are still doing all the thinking. But my mechanical systems are handling the physical work. The networks do not have to work as hard, so they can focus on planning and strategy. It is like having a strong body and a smart brain working together," Zara added. The golden-spiked commander looked skeptical, but mixing primitive human technology with our advanced bio-neural systems should create conflicts and problems. "Only if you think of them as competing," Jake said. "I think of them as cooperating. Each system does what it does best." Jake spent the next hour explaining his approach to the Draconian commanders. He showed them how his mechanical bridges worked. He explained how the systems communicated with each other. He demonstrated how the backup systems could take over if the primary systems failed. The commanders asked many questions. Some were technical, others were about safety and reliability. Jake answered them all honestly. There are risks, he admitted. Anytime you modify a complex system, you create new possibilities for problems, but you also create new possibilities for improvements. What happens if your mechanical systems fail? Asked the silver-skinned commander. Then the bio-neural networks take over, Jake said. The ship will still work, just not as well. And what happens if the bio-neural networks fail? The ship dies, said the golden-spiked commander. Not anymore, Jake said. Now the mechanical systems can keep the ship alive until the networks heal or can be repaired. This made the commanders think. War dragons were powerful, but they were also fragile. If their bio-neural networks were damaged in battle, the ships became helpless. Jake's modifications gave them a backup plan. I want this done to my ship, said the silver-skinned commander. And mine, said another. Soon all 5 commanders were asking Jake to modify their war dragons. But Jake shook his head. I cannot do 5 ships at once, he said. Each modification has to be custom built for that specific ship. It takes time and careful work. How long? Asked Zara. 1 ship per week, Jake said. Maybe 2 if the modifications are simple. The commanders looked disappointed. At that rate, it would take months to upgrade their entire squadron. Jake saw their disappointment and had an idea. What if I teach your own mechanics how to do the work? The commanders looked shocked. Draconians guarded their technology secrets carefully. They did not share advanced knowledge with other species. But now a human was offering to teach them his techniques. You would share your knowledge with us? Asked the golden-spiked commander. Why not? Jake said. The more mechanics who know how to do this work, the more ships can be improved. That helps everyone, Zara smiled. This human continues to surprise me. First he fixes my ship with primitive tools. Now he offers to share his secrets freely. Knowledge gets better when it is shared, Jake said. If your mechanics learn my techniques, they will probably improve them. Then I can learn from them. The commanders talked among themselves in their own language. Jake could not understand the words, but he could tell they were excited. Finally, the golden-spiked commander stepped forward. Human Jake Martinez, we accept your offer. We will send our best mechanics to learn from you. In return, we will pay you well and share our own knowledge with you. Jake grinned. This was better than he had hoped. Not only would he help improve more ships, but he would learn about draconian technology from experts. When do we start? He asked. Tomorrow, said Zara. But first, there is something else we need to discuss. She gestured to the crowd of aliens that had gathered to watch the demonstration. Ship captains, mechanics, and engineers from dozens of species were all staring at Jake with interest. Word about your work is spreading fast, Zara said. Soon you will have more requests than you can handle. You need to think about what you want to do with your skills. Jake looked around at all the aliens. They came from different worlds, different cultures, different ways of thinking, but they all had the same expression. They saw him as someone who could solve problems that no one else could solve. For the first time since this all started, Jake realized that his life was about to change in a big way. 6 months later, Jake's small repair shop had grown into something he never imagined. The cramped workspace had been expanded into 3 large bays. Advanced diagnostic equipment sat next to his old hand tools. Aliens from across the galaxy came to learn his techniques. Jake stood in his main workshop, watching a young draconian mechanic named Corix install hybrid systems in a cargo ship. The alien had been one of his first students. Now Corix could do modifications that even Jake found impressive. Remember to balance the mechanical load with the bio-neural response, Jake called out. If the mechanical systems work too hard, the neural networks will try to compensate and burn themselves out. I understand, Teacher Jake, Corix replied. The 2 systems must dance together, not fight each other. Jake smiled at the phrase. Dance together had become the unofficial motto of his workshop. It perfectly described how different technologies should work when combined properly. A soft alarm chimed. Jake looked at his schedule display. Commander Zara was coming for her ship's 6-month inspection. Her War Dragon had been the first ship to receive his hybrid modifications. It had also become the most famous ship in the Draconian fleet. When Zara arrived, she was not alone. A tall alien in expensive robes walked beside her. Jake recognized him from news broadcasts. This was Ambassador Thorn, one of the most powerful diplomats in the galaxy. Jake Martinez, Zara said formally. I would like you to meet Ambassador Thorn of the Galactic Trade Council. Jake wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. Nice to meet you, Ambassador. What brings you to my shop? Ambassador Thorn looked around at the busy workshop. Mechanics from a dozen different species were working on ships with hybrid modifications. The air hummed with the sound of bio-neural networks talking to mechanical systems. I have come to see the human who is changing how we think about technology, the ambassador said. Your work here has caught the attention of governments across the galaxy. I just fix ships, Jake said. You do much more than that, Ambassador Thorn replied. You have created a new field of engineering. Universities are starting to teach courses in hybrid biomechanical systems. Ship designers are incorporating your principles into new vessels. You have started a revolution. Jake felt uncomfortable with all this attention. He had not set out to change the galaxy. He had just wanted to help a hurt ship. Come, Zara said. Let me show you what Jake's work has accomplished. They walked to where her war dragon was docked. The ship looked healthier than ever. Its skin glowed with vibrant colors. Its movements were smooth and confident. But the biggest change was in how it interacted with people. The ship had become more social, more curious about the world around it. Dragon, Zara called, say hello to our visitors. The massive ship turned its head toward them. Its eyes, which had once seemed cold and distant, now showed warmth and intelligence. The ship made a musical sound that clearly meant hello. Remarkable, said Ambassador Thorn. I have seen many war dragons, but never one with such personality. The hybrid systems do more than improve performance, Zara explained. They seem to make the ships more alive, more individual. Jake had noticed this too. Ships with his modifications developed unique personalities. Some became playful. Others became protective. A few became curious about art and music. It was as if connecting the bio-neural networks to mechanical systems had freed the ships to express themselves. We have data from 6 months of combat exercises, Zara continued. Ships with Jake's modifications performed 30% better than standard war dragons. They are faster, stronger, and more reliable, but most importantly, they survive battles that would destroy normal ships. The mechanical backup systems save lives, Jake added. When bio-neural networks are damaged in combat, the mechanical systems keep the ship flying until repairs can be made. Ambassador Thorn nodded thoughtfully. This has military implications, of course, but it also has economic implications. Ships that last longer and work better are more profitable. That is why I am here, the ambassador continued. The Galactic Trade Council wants to offer you a position as Chief Technology Advisor. You would work with our best engineers to develop standards for hybrid ship modifications. Jake was quiet for a moment. It was a huge honor. The Galactic Trade Council influenced technology development across hundreds of worlds. As their advisor, he could help improve ships throughout the galaxy, but he would have to leave his shop. He would have to work in meetings and committees instead of with his hands. He would have to deal with politics and bureaucracy instead of broken ships. I appreciate the offer, Jake said finally, but I think I can do more good here. Ambassador Thorn looked surprised. Here? In this small workshop? This is where the real work happens, Jake said. This is where mechanics learn to think differently. This is where new ideas are born. Zara smiled. I told you he would say that. You knew I would turn down the job? Jake asked. I know you, Zara replied. You care more about fixing things than about titles and fame. That is why your work is so good. You do it because you love it, not because you want power or money. Ambassador Thorn still looked confused. But think of what you could accomplish with the resources of the Trade Council behind you. You could change technology across the entire galaxy. I am already doing that, Jake said. Every mechanic who learns these techniques goes back to their homeworld and teaches others. Every ship captain who sees the improvements wants them for their own fleet. The knowledge is spreading on its own. Jake gestured around his workshop. Look at this place. 6 months ago, I was the only human here. Now I have students from 20 different species. They are not just learning my techniques. They are improving them and creating new ones, it was true. Jake's students had developed modifications he never would have thought of. Korix had created a system that let ships heal their own bio-neural networks. A Xanthari engineer had built mechanical systems that could learn and adapt like living tissue. A young human named Casey had designed hybrid drives that were faster than anything in the galaxy. The students are becoming the teachers, Jake continued. That is how real change happens. Not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Ambassador Thorn was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled. You are either very wise or very foolish. I am not sure which. Maybe both, Jake said. As they walked back through the workshop, Ambassador Thorn saw something that made him stop. In one corner, a group of young mechanics from different species were working together on a new project. They were laughing and arguing and sharing ideas, all trying to solve the same problem. What are they working on? The ambassador asked. A new type of rescue ship, Jake said. One that can save the crews of damaged vessels even in the middle of battle. They have been working on it for 2 months. Whose idea was it? Theirs, Jake said. I just gave them workspace and tools. The creativity is all their own. Ambassador Thorn watched the young mechanics work. You know, he said slowly, maybe you are right. Maybe this is where the real work happens. Before leaving, Ambassador Thorn made Jake an offer. Keep your workshop. Keep teaching. But let the Trade Council help fund your work. We will provide resources and equipment. We will help your students publish their discoveries. We will make sure their innovations reach every corner of the galaxy. Jake thought about this. It would mean more resources for his students. It would mean their ideas could spread faster. But it would not change what he loved most about the work. Okay, he said, but I have one condition. What is that? No politics. No committees. No bureaucracy. Just support for the work itself. Ambassador Thorn laughed. Deal. As the sun set over Kepler Station, Jake stood in his workshop and looked around. Mechanics from across the galaxy were working side by side, sharing knowledge and creating new solutions. Ships of every type and size were being improved with hybrid modifications. The War Dragon rested peacefully in its bay, its skin glowing softly in the dim light. 6 months ago, Jake had been just another human mechanic that aliens looked down on. Now he was a teacher, an innovator, and a bridge between different ways of thinking. But what made him happiest was not the fame or the respect. It was the sound of healthy ships and the sight of mechanics from different worlds working together. It was knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, a ship with his modifications was flying safely through the stars, its crew protected by the marriage of bioneural intelligence and mechanical reliability. Zara approached him as he was locking up for the night. Any regrets? She asked. Jake looked at her War Dragon one more time. The ship noticed his attention and made a soft, contented sound. None at all, Jake said. This is exactly where I belong. As they walked out together, the War Dragon's eyes followed them with affection and gratitude. In the 6 months since Jake had saved its life, the ship had become more than just a machine. It had become a friend. And that, Jake thought, was the most important modification of all.